What's going on, everybody? James here from Artofficial Entertainment, and today I'm going to be showing you how to be able to use the wall running system inside the dynamic parkour trace system version 3. So let's go ahead and dive in. Alright, so we are back in the project that we've been setting up all the other actions in. Like I said, this one we're going to be talking about wall running, which is kind of one of the final actions that we can set up with the system. At least as of right now. I am going to be adding more action types in the future, but for right now, wall running is going to kind of close off the main setup for the actions. Now, wall running is actually very simple. Just like with the ledge catch action, we set all that up pretty quickly. Wall running is also very, very easy to use. Now, the first thing to bear in mind is that wall running can only be done on flat surfaces. So something like this could easily be used for a wall run. However, this would not be able to because it is a curved surface. So something just to keep in mind, there will be curved surface wall running added in the future, but I have to work out some of the vector math a little bit more. So I don't want to, put that in without it being ready. Now, the other thing is that just like with all of the other points that we can assign, for like climbing, beams and stuff like that, we have to give the area that we want to assign a tag. Now, if we click on, like, for example, this back wall here, go into the tag section, and we add under the actor, add a new tag, all we need to do is assign it as wall run, and that's it. Now, this actor can be used for wall running. Now, wall running is by default enabled because when you use or call the in-air traces, the two traces that are going to be called are going to be the ledge catch and as well as the wall run search. Now, if I, just by setting that tag, if I go up to the actor here and just jump near it, you can see that now we are wall running, and I can even press the space bar to jump off the wall. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the way we can modify wall running through settings, but we're also going to open up our character blueprint, so this way we can see our traces that we're going to be using for this as well. So if we go into the third person blueprints BP third person character, or at least that's what my character is, and then we go into the components section, dynamic parkour trace system, and we're going to look under the debug settings here for the trace search options. Now we're going to add under this trace the search type selection, and we're going to set it to sidewall search. Now, as you guys probably remember from the vaulting and mantling video, the sidewall search will look for sidewalls left and right, but this is also the one you're going to use to be able to look at wall running, because wall running is also a looking for a sidewall. So now with that selected, if I just slow down my gameplay real quick and press the spacebar, you can see we get that, and we also have these two traces going left and right from our character. So that's very important to bear in mind where those traces are, because if we go back and go to our content, DPTS assets, selection tables, settings, and then open up the settings selection table. Under the wall run settings here, we have a few different values that we can adjust, such as the search distance, which we can see right now is set to 90. If I set this to 150, it'll go off, and you can see now it's searching much farther left and right. So you can set this to whatever you want. The search start Z offset you can set to something higher or lower, so this way it'll maybe start a little higher, more around his chest if you want it, or more towards his feet. And the rotation match error tolerance, this is just like with the tic-tac actions, it's going to be trying to make sure that you're actually somewhat aligned to the wall. So like you can see in this instance, right, it's finding the wall, but it's not triggering it. I have to be more aligned with it for it to actually trigger the wall run. And then the last thing here is the max speed. Now this one is probably, pretty basic here. If I set this to something slow like 250, my wall run's going to be very slow, right? But if I set this to something like 1500, and I go up to it, we're now going to be moving much faster. That's the basics with setting up wall running and getting the settings together. Now let's go get our animations together, so this way we can actually have him running across the wall itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our animation blueprint, which for me is going to be in my tutorial assets folder under animation. Then I have this tutorial AVP here. We'll double click and open that up. And we're going to want to go into our parkour states and then into the state here. Now, you're going to notice we have set up all the other types, but we did not set up the wall run pose. Now, for this, what we can do is we can pull off, and we're going to do a blend by int. And you'll see blend poses by int. And the reason why we're going to use this one is because we right-click on the binding, we can set it to the wall side index. Now, the indexes are going to be either 0 or 1, depending on if it's left or right. So we're going to look at these two animations that I have here, which is the left side, and then I also have the right side as well here. So we're going to take both of these animations and bring them into my graph. Now, something we can do just to make things easier is if we box select both of these, go into the details panel, and then we can just check loop animation. So that way now both of these will have the loop animation option checked. I will be honest, in the current moment, I don't 100% remember which one is left and which one is right. So we're just going to go with left being 0 and right being 1. And then if I'm wrong, we'll come back and we'll just swap them back. So if we compile and save, and then hit play. And now if we go over to our object here, all right, so yep, I have them backwards. So that's totally fine. We'll just swap right into 0 and left into 1. So okay, so that's what it is. So it's right is 0, left is 1. So now if I compile, hit play, and I go back over here, we will now, you can see we're now running on the proper side, although that speed is way too fast. I'm just going to go ahead and turn that down really quickly. I'm going to turn it back to the 850 that it was before. But now if I go ahead and just jump on the wall, you can see, we run this way, then I can turn around, I can run this way, and there we go. Now the other thing you're going to notice though is that there is a bit of a, it's a bit of a rough start in between the like the falling state and the wall run state. We can fix this actually very easily if we go into our animation blueprint here, go back to the parkour states anim graph, and we're going to actually look at the false blend time here. Now because we have this, we can actually pull on, or actually we'll take this, highlight it, and duplicate it, and we're going to see if it's equal to wall run, and we're going to pull off the false here and do a select float. So now if it's equal to wall run, if that's true, then we want to set the blend time to maybe 0.3 instead of 0. Because now if we go up to the wall, you can see it blends a little bit better. Now, the reason why there's a bit of it, like it looks like the, there's a bit of a jitter with the camera is because of the collision here. So if I just go in collision settings on this item that we're wall running on, and then I go into the collision presets, change it from default to custom, hit the little drop down arrow, and then under collision responses, set camera to ignore. Because now what'll happen, you can see that it's a little bit smoother. Now that 0.3 might be a little too long, so we can maybe make that a little bit quicker. So we'll set it to maybe 0.2, and then we'll, there we go. All right, so that looks a little bit better. Now we can start wall running and we can jump off nice and easily. All right, so now we have some wall running in place. Beyond being able to just do wall running, we can also do jumps from a wall run state to a target point, or just a free jump off of the area completely. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our character, and then in the dynamic parkour tray system here, in the details panel under the debug settings under system, we're going to set the sidewall search under the search type selection. We're going to change this to climb jump target search. Because now if we hit play and we go up here, you can see that there are traces going to the left. And if I go this, I can do another trace forward. And if I go this way, we can also do a trace onto the side here as well. So this allows us to be able to actually look for possible target points. So what I'm going to do now though is I'm going to go back to my settings here, and we're going to open up where you can see the wall run jump search settings. Just going to cover this real quickly. Now as you can see, the settings here are exactly the same as you would have set inside of the actual climb states. But this allows us to be able to isolate settings we want to use specifically for wall running. So in this case, we have the max forward distance of 350, max search height of 350. We're bringing it down by 140 units. And we're not doing any sort of forward offsets. So this is something that is a good starting point. But as you can see here, maybe we want to trace a little bit further. Maybe we want to start a little bit more down. It's entirely up to you. But this is going to be where you're going to change that height, the length, how far forward it's going to start, how far down it's going to start, as well as that search size here where I can, if I set this down to 10 on the Y instead of the 40 that it was, you can see these are much thinner traces. So we can use this to be able to set it up exactly like how we did with the other actions, but these are only going to pertain to when you're trying to do something from a wall run state. So now let's start looking at setting up a animation where we can do a wall run jump, maybe to a beam of some kind. So I'm going to grab this beam over here. I'm just going to take a copy of it. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, make it a little bit wider, and then I'm going to bring it down so that way it'll be within our trace range. Now, if I just go ahead and hit play, do the wall run over here and do the search, you can see that we have the yellow target point for the height. Now it's going to keep running because of the fact that we do not have the actual animation set up inside of our character, or the animation selector, I should say. So we're going to go into our BP third person character here. Under the interfaces section, action events, we're going to grab the wall run jump event here. Now you'll see, just like with the ledge catch action, we have a Boolean value here, and this one says free jump. So essentially what this means is that there has been no target found. So we're going to grab a reference to our parkour system, pull off, and type in anim selection. You'll see the wall run jump here at the bottom. And then we'll plug that in just like so. Now the compare values, we're just going to do a make array, but we're going to leave the array value blank because I don't really have any values that I'm going to use for specifically for wall run jump. But if you wanted to, you could go ahead and pull off the parkour system and type in climb jump distance, and you can use this if you'd like. But I'm just going to use no value because realistically, I'm just going to be setting a limitation in the animation. Now, however, we're going to take the row use index and the compare values. We're going to do a select here. So we're going to pull off of the row use, hit select, and then take free jump. Now, if it's true, it'll be 1. If it's false, it'll be 0. And then for the priority, we're going to pull off, type in select, and basically do the exact same thing, where it's free jump. And then if it's true, it's going to be this state match restriction. And then if it's false, we're just going to set compare value. Now, just like I had said with the ledge catch actions, though, if you are using custom bool modifications, you're going to want to make sure to set modification and set a compare value off of false. But because for these particular actions, I don't have any set up, so I'm just going to go ahead and set it up off a compare value if the free jump value is... I just realized I actually have these backwards. So free jump is false, meaning that we found a target, state match restriction. However, if free jump is true, meaning no target has been found, then we're going to do compare value. So I apologize, I had that backwards. But there we go. So okay, so now we got our wall jump animation selector in. So now if we go back and we hit play, even if we don't necessarily find an option, you can see now it drops off. So this is only if you've given it settings. If you don't want to use wall run jump at all, and don't worry about that. That's just because we haven't given anything in the animation table. But if you don't want to use anything at all, if you go into the actual settings for the selection here and go into the wall run settings, sorry, the DPTS settings selection table, under the wall run settings, just set the search distances for the jumps here. We can set this to 0 and 0. So this way it won't even search anywhere, won't go anywhere, won't ever find anything. So just something to bear in mind is that if you're not looking to use the wall run jump setup, just set these values to 0 and you'll be good to go. However, we are going to be setting them up and using them. So we want to make sure that they have a trace value. And now we're going to give some animations that we can put in there. So inside of my folder here, I do have this new wall run here. And I've just, grabbed some simple animations where we can jump to the left and to a 90-degree angle and forward, another one a 90-degree angle, and then forward. So basically, it'll allow us to be able to go like from this, I can jump forward, I could jump to the left, to the right, just depending on which we're actually in. Now, I'm just going to make a quick folder for montages, and then I'm going to go ahead and just take all of these, right-click, and create the anim montage. We're going to put these all into the montages folder, and then we'll start with the simple wall run left, and we'll do the 90-degree jump. All right, so what we'll do is we'll add a couple notify tracks here, and then make sure enable auto blend out is unchecked. And then we're going to right click, add notify state, motion warp with offset, and we're going to look at where he actually does the jump off, which I'd say would be probably right about there. And then we'll give him a point, and we'll kind of go from here to here. Now you can see because he ends in a falling state, we're going to want to use our transition system to be able to actually attach. So we're going to go into the primary offsets, make sure state warp overrides is checked, and then we'll take the forward, -40, and up 40. And then make sure orientation is set to the primary target normal. And then the root motion modifier here will set to the height. Ignore z-axis unchecked, warp rotation. We want to make sure warp rotation is checked. And then we're going to right click, add notify, and reset parkour action. Now, just like with the other transition actions though, we'll set the blend time to 0.2, go under the transition options, attempt transition, and then under the advanced options, we're going to make sure that maintain search values is checked. So we can go ahead and just save this now. And then if we go into our content, DPTS assets, selection tables, miscellaneous, then we have this wall run jump selection table here. So we'll double click, open it up, add a new row in here, and then we'll add a new element. Now remember, we had set up in our character that if it's a free jump false, so in other words, we're actually, there's a target that's been found, we're using row 0. So that's what we're going to use here is technically, I guess, the one listed as 1. Now we'll go ahead and just add a compare value, but I'm just going to leave it blank. And then the action modification, state match restriction, I'm going to go ahead and set it up so that way we can use it on several values. So I'm going to set it up just to be off of none. And then our montage itself is going to be that jump, is going to be this one here, the horizontal left jump 90. Now, one thing to bear in mind with these as well is that if you're using the side left and right jumps, we're going to want to make sure to set the input restriction here. So we have the input, we can set this to left, or I'm sorry, we actually want to set that to right. So now if I play, after hitting save there, and I walk up to this item and I do the jump over, you can see that we now jump over to the item and we are now hanging onto it. So we can use the transitions to be able to use a jump off from one area and then actually attach to another. Now this doesn't just apply to the, the left variant. If we go and set up another one here, and I can actually, I'll go ahead and I'll duplicate this. and I'm going to shrink it down just a smidge, and we'll rotate it 90 degrees, and we'll put it in something like there. So that way it's something that can be found by maybe a forward search, right? And then we'll just go and quickly set up the forward. So if I open up that animation here, add a couple notify tracks, uncheck the enable auto blend out, right click, add notify state, motion warp with offset, look at where he actually starts his jump, and then look at where a good target position would be, which I'm going to use here. And then the root motion modifier we'll set to height, ignore z-axis uncheck, keeping warp rotation checked, use state warp overrides, primary offsets, and then forward, -40, up 40. And just as a reiteration, these are just arbitrary values that I'm using that obviously, as you can see, I could probably increase these values to achieve a bit of a better result. But that's why I'm just kind of showing you guys, you can put whatever values into here you want that feel good, just kind of mess around with them. That's why I showed you guys the time dilation, because it helps slow things down and see what's what. Now we're just going to right click, add notify, and then do the reset parkour action. Make the blend time of around 0.2. Transition options, make sure to check attempt transition. And then under the advanced options, maintain search values. So now if we save, go back to our Wallrun jump selector, do the same thing here. We're going to add under the state match restriction, target's going to be none, but my input's going to be forward. And then under the montage selection here, I'm going to get the Wallrun L jump forward. And then hit save. Now if I go and hit play, run up to the object here. Oh, I was too far away from the actual area. Let's try that again. So we'll go and run up to the area and then boom and attach. Look at that. All right, perfect. Now again, as you know, probably want to make that trace distance maybe a little bit further, just to make it so he's not jumping so close to the item. But again, these are all things that you can kind of just play around with and kind of see how things feel for you. The last thing I'm going to show you guys is how to be able to set up the warp system for when you don't have a target, right? So in this instance, we're going to add a new row, because we have said for row 1, or in this case row 2, is going to be for when we're just using a free type jump off. So in this case, we're not going to use transition actions, and we're actually going to use different animation setup. So we're going to copy a couple of animations and just kind of change up some things. Now we'll set a compare value, but we'll leave it blank. Action modifications are going to be set based off of really input only. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to right. And then I'm going to go and set the montage right up with a bit of a different setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the Wallrun jump left here that we've created. And I'm going to use this duplication to be able to use for our free jump here. So what we can do with this is if we go in, add the couple notify tracks, make sure enable auto blend out is disabled. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to look at when he jumps off the object. So I'm going to look at right about here. Now what I can do is I can right click, add notify state, add notify, and we're going to use the reset DPTS movement overrides. And then we're going to fast forward a little bit to right about here, right click, add notify, and then we're going to do just the reset parkour action. So we're just doing a reset of movement and then reset of the search. So we'll set the blend time to 0.2, and we're not using any transition options or anything on this one, so we're just going to leave those blank. And then if we go into the movement overrides here, I'm going to set the movement mode to falling. Make sure to check include constraint. I'm going to set my gravity to 1.75. So if we save, and now we go back into our wall jump animation here, and in this new row that we created, I'll just go ahead and throw that animation that we just set up right into the slot. So you can see here now we have that new one that we just made with just the movement overrides and the reset. So if I go ahead and click on play now, and I just kind of run up to the wall here, you can see that we now do a jump off. So it's just, we're using the animation's root motion at this point because there's no target that's been found. So he's just kind of jumping off nice and steadily. And then you can set this up for the right side, the forward, and all the different sides are pretty much the exact same thing. It's just setting up maybe a simple place for us to be able to let the root motion really kind of take over, and then a reset for the actual searches at the end. But now, with these two action types here, we can now wall run, and then we can jump to a target here. We can wall run, and we can jump to a target on the other side here. We can kind of jump up to this. And we can also wall run, and then just kind of jump off of things onto, nothing at all, basically. Now, one thing to note is that the wall run jump action here, we're using the beam here, but we could also use, for example, we could set this. So if I take this 90 degrees here, push this in, maybe we'll make it a little bit wider, just to kind of give me a better target to be able to hit. And now if I hit play, we go wall run, boom, 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 and then jump and, oh, that's right, okay. I forgot we removed the tags on this item when we were doing other stuff. So we're going to add 2 tags, make sure one is set to climb. And the second one here, we're just going to do ledge because that's what I'm ultimately trying to do. So now if we do this and then do the jump over, now we're attached. And then I can jump over on this side. So we could do like a wall run, jump to this and then hide. Like let's say this was a hallway, right? That would be a really great way to use this type of action setup, is that if this were a hallway here, you can have your character. Now that'd be a really great way to be able to set it up, is that if you had a character here with the hallway, you could jump over and then just quickly switch wall sides and let the, like a guard or somebody pass through here. So this is some, a few different ways that you could set these actions up. But again, it's all about just, figuring out what parts of the system you want to use. And realistically, that's kind of it for wall running, guys. I mean, we can, we could add additional blending stuff here, trying to clean that up a little bit. I am going to be adding an additional interpolation function into the wall running eventually, just to try and fix some of this rough start that can happen. But I will say some of this is due to just the fact that the my cam or my screen recording software is lagging things out just a little bit, but it's not too bad. So we've got wall running, jumps, ledge catch, vaults, mantles, slides. We've set up quite a few different actions here, guys. And again, using what I've shown you, there's really not a whole lot of restriction. You can play around with target points and offsets and how things are going to behave. And the other thing that I did want to point out as well, now this doesn't really relate to wall running, but it's something that I did want to kind of point out, is that if we take 2 objects like this, so in the other video when we set up the climb start, we had made it so that way we had a live adjustment to be able to make sure that we were in the right location. So for example, if I walk over to here, climb up here, now you can see we're in the full contact position. However, if I go over to the ledge here, you can see how it automatically puts me in a ledge hang. Now this is something that's currently only available for the ledge type system. So the live update is currently only available for ledges, and the reason realistically is, as you can see, it's not bad, but it could be better. Something to fix that issue when we're going from the hang to the collision here too is if we go in, or the full contact, is if we go into the collision settings for the bigger object, collision, custom, and then set the camera here under the collision responses to ignore. And then if we hit play, we can now go over to here, do this, and then if we go back, you'll see that it doesn't do the screen kind of mess up there. So this allows us to be able to go and kind of transition between full contact and hang states, but I am working out a better system, which is why it's not currently available for all of them, but it is in there and it does work, and it works quite well, I have to say. But that's kind of it, guys. That's all the main setup. We've got a ton of different actions set up, and as you guys probably can see by now, we got a lot of consistency with just anim selection and how things work using the modifications. There's a lot of more customization now than there ever was in previous versions. So now, as I keep saying, this is what I've shown here in any of these videos is nothing more than an example. Okay, it is not a direct one-to-one do this to achieve this. Okay, this is how this works. So if you're trying to achieve something in this area, this is what you're going to use, but you can make it look completely different to what I'm showing you. This is why, different animations, being able to use the transition system to be able to maybe, cut an animation that might end in a state. So like in the climbing here, we cut some animations up for the jumps here. We made it so that way we have one that's just the jump itself. We made another one that's just the land itself. And we made these out of one animation. So this one is the all-in-one version, but because we cut it up, we now have a single and a land version of these as well. And you can do these with all different types of animations and mix and match using the transition system, which honestly is kind of one of the more fun things that I've had a lot of fun playing around with. But if you guys have any issues, comments, concerns, anything you want to, if you have any troubles or any bugs, feel free to reach out to me on the Discord. I will say that I do try to monitor the YouTube comments as quickly as I can, but realistically, I am much more responsive in Discord. So if you guys have any problems or anything, you need to reach out to me, All the links will be in the descriptions for all the videos, so no matter which one you're watching, you'll be able to find that Discord link. But that's really going to close it out, guys. We got some auxiliary videos that I'm going to be setting up, such as like collision stuff and then other stuff down the road, but this is kind of it for the main setup. So I hope you guys are going to have fun with this. I hope you guys are excited to really kind of get around and play around with it and then kind of break some stuff. I can't wait to see what you guys are going to set up with this. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Who knows what that might be, but until then, stay tuned, and as always, stay animated.